I certainly think that we have a message. When people want to descend into the gutter of politics, you have to be willing to rise above it because the gutter they are going to, when you follow them to that gutter, you destroy a nation. What Jacob Zuma is doing, he's starting a race war that we saw some manifestations thereof in Tshwane. When you start to divide people on the basis of race, the next thing you've got to divide them on the basis of is language. So today you might say Zulu's this side, Xhosa's this side. And where do we end up when we're finished with doing that? It has a divisive element, and that's not the element I'm willing to put up with. We've got to be able to be angry and strong as I communicate often. Without, we got to fight for the issues because it's the people at the end of the day. It's them that we exist to share. And I think to me, the desperation from both of them showing that they've realized that you don't attack. You know, in Zulu, there's a famous saying. It says, "Zikhonkota ehambayo," which means the dogs only bark at moving things or moving vehicles. And it's true. When you've got momentum with you, people must attack you. Whether it's Kenny Kunene, whether it's Jacob Zuma, whether it's Julius Malema, they recognize the momentum is with us. And without us having to descend to their level, I've still got an interest in the country. I've got a nation that I'm focused on. And we must never lose track of that. We must never lose track of the reconciliation project. We must never lose track of redress as a function of what we do. We must never lose track of opportunities for South Africans. And one of the sad things that when you descend into the gutter, the real issues suffer. Nobody's talking about jobs. We're the only ones who are talking about jobs. Nobody's talking. Jacob Zuma doesn't want to talk about corruption. He talks about race and race mobilizations. These are things that tell you of a president who doesn't have a vision for South Africa and he seeks to divide on the basis of race. And lastly, it works. For many, we've seen liberation movements resort to this kind of thing. And I'm afraid in other places it's had devastating effects. Go to Rwanda. If I add to that fire, we end up with a division and a war between Hutus and Tutsis. Go to Kenya and see what happens when people decide that ethnicity matters more than ideas and ideals. Go to Burundi now and see that is beginning to resurge. And you can see it even in little things. That you can recall some of the incidents that took place in Limpopo, where about one group now starting to take on another group. You can see in Tshwane, when people stood up and said, we don't want Toko because she's Zulu. We can see the violence that is taking place in KZN. All of these things, the president has failed to give leadership on, and it tells you that when you descend into the gutter of politics, you set up a fire that may be very difficult to contain at the end of